many people were crippled, literally and figuratively, by the pandemic, but none more than the disabled community in this country. And Neil Romano joins us right now. He's the chairman at the National Council on Disability. And Neil, thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, people with disabilities, they're always trying to try to be as much of a normal life as possible, but by virtue of it, they have a disability, so they achieve more right off the bat. And all the advances with, accessibility and workplace and all this other stuff. And this pandemic has reversed some great gains in that community really quick, hasn't it?
Well, John, you got to start off with the fact that people with disabilities are twice as likely to be unemployed in America and twice as likely to live in poverty. So, of course, as the whole nation suffers, they suffer, and they suffer incrementally. For me and for those of us at NCD, the important thing, John, is that we remember when we come out of this pandemic, we're going to come out of it. America's going to come back again. That when we come back, people with disabilities have to be considered right up there, right up front, to get them back into the workforce, because it's good for them and it's good for America.
So I'm thinking, Neil, I'm sorry. I'm thinking there's a lot of programs that the government has been trying to get out there. I thought, the president, he had to throw a wide net at it, but he did get a lot more money out the door in a quick fashion. Because he's a businessman, in my view. Are there, I know in the SBA there are a lot of special programs and stuff where you automatically have to be at least included in the bidding process. Is that opening up maybe for some of the disabled community, or no?
Well, John, it actually is not part. People with disabilities are not considered a community that are eligible for that, but NCD and other groups have worked very, very hard to make that happen. Because I agree with you 100% as a businessman too, and an advocate for people with disabilities, and as a person with a disability, that's really important, because we know that folks with disabilities, one of the things that the problem they have multiple problems and barriers with regard to work, and to have the help of the SBA that does an awful lot to help people get into jobs by creating their own companies, that would be incredibly valuable, and that's something we're working on.
Well, my friend, God bless you for the work you do. I'm happy anytime I look at the guests for the day and I see a fellow nation of origin, Italian, on the other side, or at least I assume that. I mentioned a little earlier it's National Liqueur Day, so I'm representing for the hometown with the Campari today. I understand from our chat a little earlier you're quite the limoncello maker.
That is true. That's one of our favorites. My wife and I make it quite a bit, and it's really good. But I'd like a shot of Campari right about now.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll do a swap one of these days, and I'll have some of your limoncello on the show. It looks like compared to the national unemployment rate, right now, the disabled unemployment rate is about 50% higher, 40 to 50% higher. What are you guys advocating for? Are you lobbying for to close that gap? And what was that gap pre-pandemic?
Well, the gap was even greater pre-pandemic. It was actually much higher. But the fact of the matter is that during the improvements over the last 3 years, and I guess a rising tide lifts all boats, as they say, but it's well planned to lift all boats as it comes to employment. There are, one of the most important things is educating employers. One of the things we work on about the value of people with disabilities. John, people have people with disabilities in their mind. They have a certain type of person, and they look at people for what they can't do, when what they really should be doing is looking at them for what they can do. People with disabilities have proven again and again and again to be a tremendously valuable part of the workforce. There was a study done by Accenture that says they are as valuable or more valuable than others in the workforce. There was another study done by employees who had worked with people with disabilities who said they were better employees, more dedicated employees, and worked harder than anybody else. And that's something that we at the National Council on Disabilities try to make sure we tell the American people, try to make sure we get out to American businesses to explain that story Also, there are organizations within the government like the Office of Disability Employment Policy, which I had the pleasure of being the Assistant Secretary of Labor and running a few years back, that also work extremely hard to do that. And I know that they have programs, and I know they work with people like all the time to get people with disabilities employed.
I have a very dear friend who's severely disabled and operates better than most physically full, healthy people I know. And I can tell you categorically that every employee I've ever had that had some disability was on time, organized, happy to be there, and, you know, task-oriented. Like, I always thought that was an amazing trait. I guess you're driven more, so you really appreciate more the opportunity to even be there.
Yeah. Well, you know, John, you know, we're talking right now, and, you know, I have the resume, I have all this and that. What people don't know is that I'm a person that has dyslexia. I also, a few years ago, I also have leukemia. And none of that stopped me. It has made me more driven. And everyone I meet with a disability who works really do shine in their job. And I talk to a lot of young people about that. I said, you can't be the same. You got to be better. You've got to prove a point. And that's a great point.
I agree with you. I think I'm 52 years old. I remember when the disabled equality movement was really starting to go, right? And a lot of companies would hire, mentally or other disabled people, and it would almost be like a participation trophy for actually getting to work. And if you know what I mean, all right, yes, we got a special award for Dan. He did a great job this month. And then it's good to see, that it's come to a point where employers realize that these people are valuable, if not more valuable, in helping build your organization.
That's absolutely true, and you're right. People with disabilities are moving up in businesses because they are achieving, and they're no longer what I sometimes call the company pet. The person who is put there because it's a nice thing to do. They're incredibly valuable.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that, but when I said, you'd have, a special person with a disability and they would get, some participation trophy, same thing. It was like a mascot more than an actual attempt to make this person be better. And it's good to see, in my lifetime alone, I know plenty of people that are disabled that have got to the highest heights of careers in all different places. So that's something that I think is an advance. We got to do something about this unemployment gap, but.
Yep, we sure do. And working on and continuing to work on it. And John, I thank you today. We've been working on it for a long time, but more has to be done. And as I say, I would tell your audience, one person at a time, we can do things in the government to change things, to make sure that the barriers come down. But it's a one-on-one situation. The next time you look at a person with a disability, you shouldn't look at him and say, that poor guy. You should say, I wonder what he does for a living. I wonder how educated that person is. I wonder how I can, in my business, bring someone in who'll bring value to my business.
Yeah, how about look over at them and think in your head, wow, in reality, that person's probably working harder than me. And then maybe use it as motivation. But if anybody says anything to me about that community, I'm going to tell them the most important thing. They better watch their back because Neil Romano is going to be looking for them. And that's a bigger problem than they want on their hands. But my friend, thank you so much. Anything you want to get out to the public to the extent we can help, please let us know anytime and come on down.
If you have just a moment more, John, I just want to remind everybody that they can look at the work of the National Council on Disabilities on our website at www.ncd.gov. And you'll see on there all of our reports and the things that we work on that we advise the president.
Can you give that to me one more time for people watching? And then, Nico, on this commercial, let's make a lower third with the website on there and just leave it up for most of the show. If anybody wants to find it, they can look at it a little later. How does that sound? Give us that website one more time, please, Neil.
It's www.ncd.gov.
.gov. Okay, yep. I like the .govs. Those are good. Neil Romano, thank you so much. Any way we can help, please reach out. God bless you. Have a nice weekend.